welcome. Thank you for joining with us today to touching on the pathways and opportunities available within the advanced practice space. If you're not joining us live, I hope you enjoy the recording, and please do feel free to contact me to ask any questions or discuss anything further. Today we'll be joined by Zoe Sherlock, who's an ACP following completion of the portfolio route, and Zoe's manager, Sunit Divat, who will talk us through having ACPs in the service. We'll also hear a recording from Ellen McGowan to discuss her experience of the degree apprenticeship. Next slide, please. As always, we do just need to touch on housekeeping. I'm sure you're bored after a day of this, but if you do have a question, please do make sure it's posted in the questions box. The chat function is also there to add comments, thoughts, and feelings, so please do use this. If you provide feedback, it also contributes towards your point tallying. So as touched on, this session will be recorded, so please do feel free to share with colleagues following the session. There is also a code that will pop up at the end. This is to go to the Challenge Hub and can move you up on the leaderboard as well. So next slide, please. So one thing we consistently hear is that there's a lack of understanding to what advanced practice actually is. As a result, in 2024, the CAPO, or Chief Allied Health Professions Officer for each nation, joined together to develop a shared definition of advanced practice. It's that big long one on the screen you can see right now. But to pick out the key terminology within this, we'd look at complex decision-making, master's level or equivalent, 4 pillars of practice, so leadership, clinical, research, and education, clinical risk and uncertainty, and improved outcomes. There are also things that aren't mentioned here. So for example, prescribing. Whilst we fully accept being able to prescribe would be preferable, you do not need to prescribe to be an ACP, and you do not need to be an ACP to prescribe. Next slide, please. So I'm sure you want to hear from the people who are actually living this day in, day out, but I just wanted to quickly go through some key national plans for each nation and some key policies which can be used alongside to support advanced practice. So next slide, please. Oh, sorry, not the next slide. Keep that one there, sorry. So firstly, in NHS England, they've developed the 10-year plan in 2025, which highlights key 3 drives. These include hospitals community, so helping people be treated closer to home, analog to digital, so adapting modern technology and using this as an effective way to improve pathways, communication, and interventions. There's also a strong focus on sickness prevention. So rather than being reactive to health and care needs, putting things in place to prevent the need for an intervention. Next slide, please. In Wales, a Healthier Wales plan is being developed. Initially, this was published in 2018, and it was updated in 2025 with 4 key aims, including improving population and health and well-being, the better quality of care and more accessible services, higher value care, and an increasingly motivated and sustainable workforce. This would be done through 10 key principles, including prevention and early intervention, independence, personalised care, higher value care, scalable care, safety, voice, seamless, evidence-driven, and transformative. Next slide, please. Scotland has also got the NHS Scotland Operational Improvement Plan. This aims to improve access to treatment, shift the balance of care, improve access to health and care through digital technology, and prevention, so prevent illness and proactively meet needs. Scotland have also been advancing in this space at a great rate. They recently developed a Transforming Roles paper, this is paper 9, which is focused on allied health professionals moving into the advanced space. We're lucky that an SLT has been heavily involved in this too. The aim of this paper was to streamline the space and create consistency across professions. I highly recommend taking a look at this, no matter where you're located. There are also some really nice examples of SLTs working in the space in Scotland. Next slide, please. Just so everyone's aware as well, I will add all of these items to the chat function as well, the links to these plans. So in Northern Ireland, they've got the Health and Social Care Reset Plan, which is looking at key principles including prevention and seeing the person as an asset in the task, investment in primary, community and social care, delivering services in a joined-up way and ensuring work and decisions are collaborative. They're also adopting a whole systems approach to reduce variation in provisions, maximising digital technology, and seeking new opportunities for research to ensure practice is evidence-based and aligned with new procedures and interventions. These very much align with what they're doing what matters most plan, which in addition to the points above, highlights the need to end violence against women and encourage safer communities, cut waiting times, provide better support for children and young people and special educational needs, and have greater consideration to the environment. Once again, there's also an SLT working in Northern Ireland as the AHP lead for education, workforce and delegation. They've been involved in the enabling another 100 students to access post-registration training in Northern Ireland. So in general, being aware of such policies and procedures is of utmost importance when looking at developing business cases, new roles and so on, including key items from here, such as adopting digital technology and prevention to these business cases, will really support any proposals. If you'd like to discuss these further, please do reach out to your lead, contact me, see how I can help. I'll now hand over to Zoe and Sanit to talk through their experiences in a bit more detail. Next slide, please.
Hi everyone, thank you, Will. My name's Zoe Sherlock and I'm a clinical lead SLT at Southampton General Hospital and also tracheostomy practitioner. And I am with my friend, colleague and manager, Sanette, who's also going to talk a bit at the end about the perspective from a managerial perspective. So I will just give you a bit of our background. If we could just have the next slide, please. So we work at Southampton General Hospital, as I say, which is a big teaching hospital on the south coast. We were very kindly given the Banksy portrait over the COVID pandemic, which has funded lots of nice things for staff. Next slide, please. We're by the coast, which is lovely, so we often get a lot of cruise ships coming in. But we're one of the largest acute teaching hospitals in England and provide services for a large number of people in Southern Hampshire, but we're also a tertiary centre. So we've got specialist services in respiratory, neuro, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, cardiovascular, and we've also got a children's hospital. And we also cover Isle of Wight and then out to the Channel Islands as well. So we cover a really big area with lots of tertiary services. We're also a major trauma centre as well. Next slide, please. So just to give a bit of my background as a speech therapist, I've been working as a speech therapist for more years than I am going to confess to. But 5 years ago, we had the opportunity, after a lot of years of asking for funding, to actually employ a tracheostomy practitioner role within the acute trust. So my background as a speech therapist is very much in adult acute dysphagia, particularly love the more complex dysphagia. I've worked in critical care a lot and also within head and neck cancer. And as I say, we've been campaigning for years to have this role. And I can't talk about the tracheostomy practitioner role without mentioning my lovely colleague, Danny, who I job share the role with. So she's a respiratory physio. And currently I do a joint role as 2 days a week as a tracheostomy practitioner and then 2 days a week still in my speech therapy role. And so those 2 days as a speech therapist are predominantly around instrumental assessment, dysphagia, supporting and training our more junior staff. And then the tracheostomy practitioner role, we pick up all of the acute inpatients with a tracheostomy, and we then follow those patients through to decannulation and to discharge into the community. So we don't have a community service, but we try and support as much as we can with just the one whole-time equivalent role. So when I took on the trachea practitioner role, Danny was in a position where she hadn't done a master's, and so she was really keen to do the ACP master's route. I had done a master's in the past and wasn't particularly keen about having to do another one. And so I sort of started to look around at possible ways of credentialing mainly the tracheostomy practitioner role as an ACP post, because we really wanted to try and protect that role as an ACP role for the future. So I am definitely not an expert in advanced practice routes and the way to get there, but I just started to do a little bit of research into the various options in order to try and get towards an ACP post. If I could have this next slide, please. Thank you very much. So as I say, there's the MSc route, and there's also sort of the degree apprenticeship route, which I think you're going to hear a bit more about as well, which is really good. When I was looking, there was also the ePortfolio supported route, which is currently still going. And that was for people who were already in existing ACP roles, and to really sort of have a look and see if they could credential the knowledge they already had at an ACP level. So I started to do a bit of research around that and thought, well, I'll just have a look at the learning needs analysis and just see if actually that's an option for me and whether I will meet that criteria. So if I could just have the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So I applied, it was Health Education England at that point when I applied. Obviously now they have become NHS England. And at the point I applied, I was in the first cohort to do the portfolio route. So it was very much a steep learning curve. I didn't know anyone else that was doing it. There was certainly no one else in the trust that was doing it. I completed my learning needs analysis form, which you need to do in order to apply. And that really helps to kind of look at the 4 pillars and work out where you are and where you sit within those 4 pillars and the evidence that you might have. So you're then assigned to a supervisor. So the supervisor I was initially assigned to was a nurse by background. She sort of looked at my learning needs analysis and said, absolutely, I think you meet all the criteria. We'll accept you onto the route. And also just to say, I was very much using both my tracheostomy and my speech therapy skills to do the portfolio route. So this wasn't based just on one of those jobs. It was based on both of them very much together. You'll also have linked to a university. So I was initially linked with the University of Coventry, and then that changed to the University of Greenwich, I think, because they have a speech therapy course within them. And at the same time, there was also a big consultation going on within our trust here with the nursing staff about ACP roles. And it was felt at that point that AHPs were out of scope for that consultation. But as I was already in an 8A role, I decided that I would carry on, obviously, with the support of my managers to doing the portfolio route. So I started that in June 2022. Next slide, please. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the multi-professional framework becomes your Bible very much for doing anything in terms of advanced practice. So it has the 4 pillars around clinical practice, leadership and management, education and research. And within each of those pillars, there are a lot of capabilities that you have to achieve. So if you're thinking about ACP, I would really recommend looking at this document because it just gives you an idea of what is required under each of those pillars. And actually those pillars are a really useful way of looking, I think, at your job role anyway and seeing where you sit and mapping yourself against them and where you might be, where your weaker areas might be that you need to try and boost up a little bit. So it's a really useful document to use. So I then started doing my portfolio. So it's all online. It's an electronic portal that you have to go through. So there were a few teething issues initially with the portal. If I could just have the next slide, please. And as I started the portfolio route, I realised I put a bit of a shout out on social media, and there were two other speech therapists who were also doing the same route within that first cohort. So we actually linked up and formed up a bit of a group between us. So I started doing my evidence, and this is just to give you an idea of some of the capabilities. So under each of the pillars, there are a range of capabilities that need to be met. And you need to have evidence for every single one of these capabilities in every single pillar. So it's a lot of work, and you need a lot of evidence to support them, and the evidence needs to be quite diverse as well. So it was really good having a bit of a support group with the three of us to sort of talk together and find out how each other had approached different things. Next slide, please. Also, we had, just while we were going through the process, the nursing supervisor we had said, actually, I don't feel I can adequately supervise you. I think you need a speech therapist. That delayed us by about 6 months because they needed to find someone who was able to take on that role. So while we were doing our evidence, there was a lot of things changing in the background. But these are just examples of some of the things that you need for your evidence. So you need to do a 360-degree feedback. That was something that I hadn't ever done before and was really, really valuable. You need to obviously seek patient feedback, which again was a really, really positive thing to do. Obviously, any competency document would go into it, any certificates. You need to do a set number of reflective pieces as well, and those have got to be on clinical scenarios, or they could be on, for example, a piece of research that you've done and then how you've implemented that into practice. I think the research pillar is one that people struggle most with, but actually lots of things can go into that pillar. So any sort of audits or poster presentations, anything you've done, all counts towards evidence. And what I tried to do was to do a bundle of evidence. So, for example, I might have done a reflective piece on a clinical scenario, and along with that, I might have a fees report, the video fluoroscopy report, feedback from maybe a GP, or reports that I'd written, or emails. And all of that can go in as a bundle of evidence linked to your portfolio and all the capabilities within it. And all of that evidence needs to be signed off by your managers as well through the portal. So it's quite a time-consuming process. Next slide, please. You then come on to doing your critical narrative. So once you've got all your evidence up together and your supervisor's happy with the evidence that you've got and you've met all the capabilities, you then need to do a 3.5 to 5,000 word critical narrative, which just, I did it by the pillars, and you have to link all of the evidence within that so that the reader can just click on the evidence and get straight to it. You need to include job descriptions, a job plan as well, which was not something I had done in the past and was really useful, a really useful thing to do. Obviously, all of the evidence has got to be anonymised. Anyone's name who does appear, so for example, if you have maybe had some competencies signed off by someone, you need to get permission from whoever's name is on there, that they're happy for their name to appear within your evidence. So a lot of scanning is needed because you've got to upload all of this digitally. If I could just have the next slide, please. So just some of the challenges. Time was definitely the biggest one. As I say, I think it was a bit harder because we were in the first portal. I hope now that the process is a lot smoother. So as you can see, I started it in June 22, and it actually wasn't signed off until August 24, but I had certainly within a year, I had done all of my evidence and everything. We then had a few more conversations kind of within the trust as well on the back of the consultation. So they had implemented for the nurses that you had to go through a panel process as well. So that delayed things a bit further because I couldn't call myself an ACP within the trust until I had been through a panel process, and that didn't happen until August this year. So it's been quite a lengthy process, I would say. Next slide, please. But a process, I think, with lots and lots of bonuses. I think it definitely gave me a lot more confidence because you suddenly realise how much you've actually done, and how many skills you have. And particularly mapping to the capabilities and the pillars is really useful. You can continue to use the portfolio platform as well for your CPD, which I do. And again, that's a really useful place for just keeping all of your CPD together. And when you've done all that work, getting all of it in one place, it's then much easier just to keep adding to your CPD file. I think it's definitely given us a platform within the trust to get a lot more recognition. And actually, Danny and I presented on the ACP Day last week, which previously has always been a nursing platform, and we were AHPs presenting on that. So I think it's really given us a forum to have conversations with a lot of our nursing and medical colleagues, which we otherwise might not have had. And it gives recognition for the tracheostomy practitioner role in the longer term as well. Next slide, please. So I think in terms of the future, it feels like we're very much at the beginning of advanced practice within SLT. I think maybe some of our physio colleagues are maybe slightly further down the line, but I think it's a really exciting time within speech therapy. There are lots and lots of opportunities, but I think you've got to be really creative about how you use them, talk to people, get out there, talk to your colleagues. I think challenge some of the preconceptions that are out there about, you know, professions, you can't do this, you're not allowed to do that. Actually start challenging some of those and look at all the opportunities that are out there and show people the skills that you have and what you can do. I'm just going to hand over to Sanette now, who's just going to present from a managerial perspective on advanced practice roles.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sanette, and I am Zoe's friend and manager, and we've worked together for many years. I think if, from my perspective, very, very briefly, and I'm quite happy to speak to people if they were interested afterwards, to contact me if you wanted to have a bit of a wider conversation. I think from a service lead point of view, if you ask the question, what does a typical advanced practitioner role look like? My advice would be that it isn't a specific role, it isn't a specific thing. It's very bespoke, and I think the more we talk about these specialist roles and what they can offer, the wider our reach would be. So I think it's important for us to consider what your service ambitions are. We're probably in a really positive position in that we are working in a very big acute tertiary trust with lots of opportunities and a lot of people around us, and definitely an environment where people are pushing the limits in terms of what we can do and where we can go. And it's wonderful that SLTs are part of that process and being allowed to join. I think something very important is personal ambitions. I put it down at the bottom to say that being an advanced practitioner is not for everybody. It's extremely hard work, and I don't know if it's come across to you what Zoe was trying to explain, but it needs a certain kind of special person with a lot of drive and a lot of focus and ambition to achieve this. So, but if you find that person, I think my role as a service lead or your role as a service lead absolutely has to be to see how we can facilitate that and support them. Every environment will have its constraints. Within our trust, our current constraint is on the back of that consultation that Zoe referred to, is that every person who wants to become an ACP or an AP has to have an 8A role to end up in at the end of their training. So we are not able to put anybody on an advanced practice journey, if you like, on a training role, if we do not have an 8A role for them to move into at the end. So that is our current restriction, but what it has helped with is more consistency across the trust, which is definitely better on the whole. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. I think from a personal point of view as a lead, we some years ago had a bit of a vision and decided in the broader perspective, what do we want our service to look like? Kind of looking at the need of our environment that we work in, but also what is required. And we started with something that we thought was quite ambitious. It turns out it wasn't that ambitious, because we drew up a plan of what we wanted our service to look like, and within probably about a year, we've managed to grow into it, which was then an opportunity to think maybe we should be more ambitious about what we want to achieve. So there are so many potential access points, I think, for our profession, and we need to be more creative and a bit more ambitious and unapologetically so, rather than just sticking to the status quo and being happy with what we've got. So lots of other opportunities to develop things, more APs, maybe consultant roles. We've got clinical specialists, which is also 8A roles, not APs, but also some clinical academic roles, which is something we're really wanting to push on as a service. We are looking very much at developing our research strategy, and clinical academic roles I think will be very important and as part of that process. And just my last slide, please. So I think as a conclusion, I think the most important thing that you can offer to any individual in your team, who is showing interest and is keen and willing to put in the work and is the right person, you have to encourage and support them. Celebrate every opportunity you can. We had a lovely celebration today, which was not on my slides, but Zoe and Danny were nominated by some of their patients for a Patient Experience Award for this month in the Trust, and they were presented with their award, all in a frame and everything. But it was wonderful to be recognised, and it said physiotherapist and speech therapist in a big acute trust. That's great, and it's important that we celebrate our role models, and for the rest of our teams it's really, really important for them to have inspiring people to aspire to. So I would say, as a leader, be deliberate in your planning. Factor in that these opportunities need to be part of our pathway for our services, and make sure you find the right people and give them all the credit and all the support you can possibly give them. That's all from me.
Thank you very much to both Zoe and Senet for your contributions. I think it's really important to hear, interesting to hear about your experiences, the benefits of advanced practice and the changes it's made for you, but also really interesting to hear from a manager as well there, to understand what they do as well and how it's impacted them. So next up, we'll play a recording from Ellen, who's just finished the apprenticeship degree just finishing the apprenticeship degree pathway. Unfortunately, Ellen is unable to join us today, but if you have any questions, she said she's happy to answer any of these via her X handle, which should be up on the screen, or please do contact me directly for her email address. So next slide into a recording from Ellen.
Hello, my name's Ellen. I'm a speech and language therapist and a trainee ACP, hopefully soon to be qualified advanced clinical practitioner. I work in Stockport in Manchester in the memory assessment service predominantly, but the whole service is for older persons' mental health. So I do see people on inpatient wards as well as in the community, and have been doing throughout my ACP sort of training journey, really. So I just thought I'd do a quick video to sort of talk through that journey, starting with why I wanted to start on the journey from the beginning. So I found out about advanced practice probably about 5 years ago now. and developed a bit of an interest in it and started to kind of see what people were doing out there and what type of job roles were there. And then I'd spoken to a few colleagues about it and heard that there were some opportunities coming up within my trust. So I kind of just kept an eye out for those, really, after having done my research and kind of speaking to other people about it. But I didn't actually manage to find anybody in memory service doing the role, but I had found people predominantly actually in paediatrics doing the role, and had sort of heard about their experience. So the adverts came out for the 2 roles in my trust for the year of 2023. And I decided to apply, thinking I probably wouldn't get the post, because actually I kind of thought that the ACP they'd want within memory clinic would need to be a non-medical prescriber, so that they can actually prescribe the anti-dementia medication after giving diagnoses. But I just thought, oh, well, I'm going to go for this anyway. And I know the role that speech and language therapy can have in MAS. And I really wanted to showcase that within the interview, to kind of say that I am a good candidate for this role, despite the fact I won't be able to prescribe straight away anyway. So yeah, went for interview, prepped really hard for it, really made sure I thought about what the questions were going to be, and looked at the 4 pillars of advanced practice and thought about how me as a speech therapist and me as a person would be able to really fulfill all those 4 pillars, which is clinical, leadership, education and research. So yeah, prepped well for interview and did really well at interview and got a place. So they did say that they would happily have me to do the training for the Memory Assessment Service ACP role. So I was really pleased about it and happy to get on the course and get started. And then it's been the toughest 2 years of my life, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, it starts off well and a happy story. It does end well as well, but I will be honest that it's been a really difficult master's degree. So I will talk about that next, but hopefully it will still be inspiring. So in terms of the course itself, it was much more physical health focused than I realised. And I really saw how much of a gap there was in my knowledge between being a specialist speech and language therapist and being an advanced clinical practitioner, but still working within the same service. So it was a really steep learning curve for me, and I had to really rely on my colleagues and particularly the resident doctors that we work with to really support me to quickly take that jump and get all my learning under control, really. So the course started for us with things like what's called OSCE examinations, so having to medically assess people and use your stethoscope to do sort of cardiac examinations on people, respiratory examinations on people, abdominal, just areas of the body that speech and language therapy don't often cover, particularly in the kind of level of depth that you'd need to know for the advanced practice role. And so, yeah, that kind of took its toll because it was a really difficult, steep learning curve for me at the beginning. And although it was really interesting, I just did find it really, really hard. So I'll be honest about that. I found it really difficult, and I was so nervous to assess patients and do physical examinations when I just really hadn't been doing that type of stuff for quite a long time in speech therapy.
Great, thank you, Ellen. And there's another recording to finish that one off as well next.
I think after getting through the initial shock and that kind of first 6 months or so of being thrown in at the deep end, things did get better, and I did find the learning really interesting. So we had some really great projects to do throughout the course, and it meant that I got a lot of experience working with resident doctors, consultants, radiographers, other ACPs within the trust and within acute organisations local to Manchester. So it was great for networking and spending time with other people and actually pushing me out of my comfort zone. So I did really appreciate all of those opportunities. And there was a really tough module called Biological Sciences, which was so in depth about kind of genes and DNA sequencing of kind of various conditions. But I could choose one in my area of interest, and I managed to choose one on frontotemporal dementia. And although it was really difficult, it was really interesting to learn about the different variations of it and the different sequencing and codes that can kind of cause FTD and the familial links. So yeah, it was really interesting, and it was good to learn about. But I would say the whole course was very physical health focused, and working in a mental health trust at the moment. Yeah, that was challenging but interesting. And then there was other skills that we learned as well. So project management type of skills, being able to be involved in research and do literature reviews, and critically analyse and appraise papers. That was really helpful for me as well. And just having that time out of work to be able to focus on those areas of uni and learning was really helpful. So it's been 2 years for me of 3 days a week working clinically and 2 days a week at university. And then sort of coming towards the end of the course, and I've been looking at how things are going to look for me when I'm working back full time and what clinics will look like. So we've spent the last sort of 6 months of the course getting me to be more of an autonomous practitioner and being able to run clinics myself. So a typical day will look for me now sort of maybe doing some sort of research projects or audits, maybe delivering some training and being involved in leadership within a morning. And then I'll have a memory assessment clinic in the afternoon. So I'll be seeing patients and diagnosing them with dementias independently. So that's quite cool for me, really, and the privilege to be able to do that and use these skills that I now have. So for instance, it'll be that I can interpret their MRI brain scan, I can interpret their blood results, I can look at the case history, look at the information we've given, conduct various cognitive assessments and interpret those and come up with a diagnosis, and then be able to think about treatment as well. Although I can't prescribe, I'll be able to look at an ECG and see what type of medication would be suitable, and then the prescriber can do that bit for me. But I do still have my fingers crossed that a speech therapist will be on the prescribing register soon, because that would make the whole journey for the patient a lot better. But yeah, so I'm working towards being sort of completely autonomous and being able to run these clinics myself. So I'd say overall it's been a really big journey. It's been such a change from normal day-to-day speech therapy that I do. But I've learned so much. I've really challenged myself. I've networked with other people, and I've got so many new skills now, lots more physical health skills, which I didn't have, but also those kind of skills around leadership and research, which is key to advanced practice. So I would recommend it to people, but I would say think long and hard about whether you're mentally ready and maybe emotionally ready as well, because it does take its toll. And you've got to be really dedicated to getting through the university degree, and it is a master's degree, so it's hard work in terms of the level 7 approach and critical thinking. So yeah, but good luck to anybody thinking about it, and reach out if you want to have a one-to-one chat with me or to find out any more about it.
Brilliant. So I'll just wait for this to move on to the next slides, if that's okay, please. And thank you very much to Ellen for that. It's really interesting to hear such a different role to Zoe, and also interesting to hear all about all the challenges you faced as well. It's really refreshing to know that as well. It's not simple, it's a really challenging procedure. So thank you for being so honest there. If you've experienced some prescribing challenges like Ellen just mentioned, please do check our Prescribing Now campaign on the website to see how you can get involved. But ultimately, these roles are developing. They are in the early stages of really working for AHPs, especially those who work away from that typical medical model. But we are hoping to develop opportunities for anybody to reach the advanced level and get into this level of practice if they wish. So I am just being wary of time now. I think I might be heading towards the end, but I just wanted to touch on some of the things we are doing at the college. So many of you have been involved and will know of the Reimagining or Relooking at Advanced Practice project. Thank you to everyone who's been involved in that. The goal of this was to broaden the opportunities for SLTs, enabling people who are working in community settings to also feel like advanced practice can work for them. This is strictly not to replace any existing pathways. SLTs like Zoe, like Ellen, have been pioneers in this space. They've enabled SLTs to become established and for us to consider how we broaden opportunities. So a huge thank you to anyone who's completed the pathway, started the pathway, or shown any interest in the pathway as well. This project has also attracted significant interest from stakeholders, including people like Beverly Hardham, but we really want to make sure that this does work for you as SLTs too. Please contact me with your thoughts. I'm also happy to send out a confidential form as well if that will make you more comfortable. So I'm also looking to develop template business cases. Now, I've been trying to get through some of the chat as I've gone through, as I was wary of time, but throughout the career, we accept that so much of what you do is proving yourself as well. You've got to develop your own job description. You've got to develop your own business cases at times to lobby for that position. So we really want to try and make this process as accessible as possible. If you have any templates or you're interested in being involved in the development of some, please do let me know. We can try and create these to make them more accessible for other SLTs. It'd also be really interesting to see anybody's job plan. Ideally, everyone would have a job plan, and it could help to understand what's included, how people are able to maintain competencies of each pillar of practice. With that as well, it'd be great to develop some profiles of SLTs working in the advanced space. This could help promote the SLT role in advanced practice and inspire others to look for opportunities or even develop suggestions for their service. I'm also really keen to hear any bulletin suggestions, and we've also got a new section on the website called Voices, which would also be great. So any way to get the words out of SLTs in advanced practice would be really good. Also visits. So I've started visiting some SLTs at university, at their service, these sorts of things, and I'm really keen to continue these visits. As I'm sure many of you will know, I'm not an SLT by background, so learning from you, hearing from you, that really helps me to learn as well. So please do contact me, and please do, if you're able to, let me come and visit you as well. So finally, we do have a professional network. This is a work in progress, and it's certainly not perfect yet, but I'm really keen to see how we can make it work best for you. Please do check it out. I have responded to a comment with it, but some of my links that I'm sending don't seem to, you have to go over them to see them or just click on them. They're not visible, but they are there. We're trying to work on that. Have a look at it. Let me know what works for you, what you want more of, what you want less of, and we'll really try and improve that for you. So next slide, please. Just to finish, we just want to say thank you to everybody for listening and joining us today. Thank you to Zoe, Sonette, and Ellen for your interesting contributions. It's really fascinating to hear from a variety of people, so thank you. Please do reach out to us with any questions. I am really sorry. I think I've run out of time for Q&A. I've gone through some of them as we've been speaking, but I haven't been able to get to everything. I will collate all of these questions. I'll share them between me, Ellen, Zoe, and Sonette, and so on, just to make sure we've got all the right people to answer the questions, and then I'll send them to you all. If you would like me to contact you directly, please email me or pop your email in the chat function and I'll get through to that. Overall, thank you to everybody. I hope you have a good afternoon, a good evening, and please do enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.